July 18, 1970, a roadside in Brooklyn. The summer heat is suffocating. Inside a Cadillac, Paul Vario's favorite protege sits slumped against the upholstery. There are no witnesses, no dramatic exchange of words, just the clinical precision of a lead delivery to the back of the skull. Paul Vario Jr. was the crown prince of the Lucchese family's most profitable crew. He was the protected one. Yet, while the architects of the Lufthansa Heist, Jimmy Burke and Henry Hill, remained untouchable in the aftermath of their greatest crimes, the man with the most powerful name in the room was the one bled out on the pavement. In the underworld, bloodlines are supposed to be armor, but as the smoke cleared in 1970, the mob proved a haunting reality. Sometimes being the boss's son isn't a shield, it's a bullseye. Paul Vario Jr. was the literal blood of the Lucchese hierarchy, a man born into the untouchable class. In contrast, Jimmy Burke and Henry Hill were outsiders, Irish and half-Italian ghosts who could never be made. While Paulie Jr. represented the old-world legacy of nepotism, Jimmy and Henry represented the new world engine of raw, clinical profit. Inside the Lucchese hierarchy, Paulie Jr. didn't have to climb. He was elevated. While Jimmy and Henry were the high-earning mechanics of the street, Paulie Jr. was the diplomatic face of the family. He operated within the Golden Circle, a realm of untouchable protection where the Vario name acted as a blank check, granting him access to the union rackets and construction skimming that the street-level soldiers could only dream of touching. The air shifted when the money grew too loud. In the 1970s, the Lucchese family's delicate balance of power began to tilt as internal factions grew restless under the weight of the Vario name. While Jimmy and Henry were providing the muscle and the math that kept the crew afloat, Paulie Jr. became a symbol of a stagnant leadership. The turning point wasn't a single heist, but the realization among the capos that the boss's son was a liability, a man whose pedigree no longer matched his utility in an increasingly violent and greedy landscape. In the shadows of the commission, power was never just about money, it was about stability. As Paul Vario Sr. tightened his grip on the New York waterfront, his son became a political pawn. The Genovese and Gambino families watched the Lucchese's internal friction with predatory interest. For the old guard bosses, a prince who couldn't control his own street soldiers was a liability to the entire syndicate's quiet arrangement with the city's political machinery. The air around Paulie Jr. grew cold. Jimmy Burke and Henry Hill, the earners, remained indispensable to the Lucchese's bottom line, but the prince was becoming a luxury the family could no longer afford. While his father was distracted by federal heat and sprawling labor rackets, the street bosses began whispering, "Silence in a social club is a death sentence." By the time Paulie Jr. realized he was standing alone, the contract had already been blessed by the very men who once bowed to his name. The trap was as silent as the grave it preceded. On July 18, 1970, Paulie Jr. was lured to a meeting under the guise of family business, a routine sit-down that required no muscle. As he sat in the Cadillac, the hierarchy he believed protected him pulled the trigger. There was no struggle, no cinematic monologue, just the dull thud of a .38 caliber round ending a dynasty. The prince was dead, sacrificed by his own blood to maintain the cold, calculating equilibrium of the Lucchese Brigada. The silence after the gunshot was deafening. Unlike the loud, messy purges that would later define the Lufthansa era, Paulie Jr.'s death was a surgical removal. Paul Vario Sr. was forced to swallow the murder of his own blood to keep his seat at the table, a brutal demonstration of the Mafia's ultimate law. The family precedes the family. Jimmy and Henry, the earners, were spared not out of loyalty, but out of utility. In the cold math of the Lucchese crew, a grieving father was manageable. A broken revenue stream was not. The murder of Paulie Jr. reveals the ultimate Mafia paradox. Power is a phantom. In the underworld, the made man is a myth, and the family is a corporate entity with no room for sentiment. Jimmy and Henry survived because they were tools. Paulie Jr. died because he was an obstacle. In the end, the Lucchese hierarchy proved that even a prince is just another body in a Cadillac when the math of the street no longer adds up. The cold, unblinking eyes of the commission remind us that in the world of the wolf, There are no sons-only survivors and the dead.